You brought up, you said you wanted to tinkered with the idea of replacing somebody on your Mount Rushmore with F.A. Hayek. And I had a Hayek scholar on here not too long ago, Greg Ransom, and had a fascinating conversation about Hayek. I'm wondering what you can tell me about Hayek, because I always think of him as a libertarian. What can you tell me about him as a classical conservative?
Yeah, he is I think it's fair to say he's a libertarian in the sliding scale, though he leans about as close to classical conservatism as you can safely get. So one of the things libertarians love to point out about Hayek, which is true, is he did write the article, Why I Am Not a Conservative. He wrote that, I think, if I'm not mistaken, as part of a debate he was having with Russell Kirk, who ironically is one of the other individuals on Mount Rushmore, on my Mount Rushmore saving Ellis conservatism. And it's an interesting, fascinating back and forth, if you will. Hayek, I think, arguably had the better written argument, if you will, even though I come down on Kirk's side. I think Hayek made a better persuasive case. The thing that I want, and Jonah Goldberg talks about this all the time, he always points out the problem with citing that article, Why I'm Not a Conservative, is Hayek does acknowledge in there, in the United States it might be an exception, because what they're trying to conserve is, in effect, classical liberalism, where he recognizes conservatism in the European sense as sort of just reactionary. Yeah. So his problem with conservatism is that all it wants to do is apply the brakes. He wants to turn the car around. But apply the brakes heading towards, say, full socialism, if you will. If the conservatism is not taking us to socialism, then Hayek may have he may be more comfortable with it, say. That being said, I think where I would see Hayek as someone you could emulate, say, within conservatism, he does something very unusual. He was, to the best of my knowledge, agnostic. He certainly was not a theist. And he mentions, even if he's uncertain about the existence of God, but even if God does exist, he doesn't want to anthropomorphize him. He doesn't want to personalize him. He says it could just be this being that we cannot comprehend what it would look or behave or desire. So in that sense, I think he rejects full-throated kind of the Christendom doctrine of God is communicated to us and we're made in his image. But the economist David Bahnsen, who's a big fan of Hayek, and he's a Christian and a Burkean, says, but Hayek makes a leap that most people who have that view aren't willing to make, which is he recognizes through his, what do they call it, the knowledge problem, that we humans have limited capacity, and that he essentially upholds all of, say, Burkean little platoon, small community. Our liberty is derived from the bottom up, slow accretion over time of wisdom. He borrows all of that from Burke, and in a sense is a Burkean, but just takes the God part out. And so it's an odd mix. He's obviously a brilliant thinker, but he's not one that I necessarily would put on the Mount Rushmore for that reason, because I think it's difficult to get all of Burke and be a true Hayekian, if you will, even though Hayek did it.